So, you've got your data. Now what? Let's talk about how you're going to code and analyze it to find an answer to your research question. After this lecture, you'll be able to explain what counts as qualitative data, identify key steps in qualitative data analysis, describe the basics of the qualitative data coding process, and begin applying the coding techniques and strategies to your own data. First, let's decide if the data you've got counts as qualitative. If you gathered recordings of and field notes on natural conversations, interviews, focus groups, public speeches, and so on, you've got qualitative data. But qualitative data is not limited to spoken language. Diaries, letters, written survey and interview responses, flyers, posters, official documents, web pages, and so on can also be analyzed from the qualitative perspective. Let's see how it can be done. Step 1 is to become very familiar with what you actually have. Begin by listening to or watching the recordings that you have made. This should give you some insights into what phenomena you might want to focus on and how fine your transcription should be. Begin transcribing your data on paper, or most commonly these days, an electronic document. As you transcribe, you may start noticing particular patterns, ways in which your participants talk about particular phenomena or events, the ways they phrase things, and even the ways they avoid talking about things. Read over your transcripts carefully, with a critical and attentive eye to the patterns you already noticed, as well as with an eye to the patterns that are yet to transpire. Get a general feeling for what people are saying and what they're doing in their talk. As you do so, take copious notes. This is the stage where you might start developing your initial codes, or at least kind of protocodes for your data analysis. The transcription stage is also the stage at which you should start organizing your data. If you're working with spoken data, it is worth your time to organize it in columns or in a spreadsheet. Here is an excerpt from an interview transcription. In the leftmost column, you may want to number the lines of the talk. Next, indicate the speaker. And finally, record the transcription of the talk. Note that this particular researcher chose to put 1 TCU, or turn constructional unit, per cell of a spreadsheet. This may or may not be the approach you choose. It will all depend on what your research question calls for. The final column in the example is reserved for the codes. Make sure to leave ample space in your document for the codes and notes. You may need more than one column, hence the recommendation to work with a spreadsheet. Textual data may be similarly organized in tables and spreadsheets, although you may not need to include a separate column for the author of the text, since the author can be listed in the title of the document. Nevertheless, you should still provide sufficient space for the codes you will assign to the moves, phrasings, or ideas you want to focus on in the text you are using for your research. So far, we have discussed what counts as qualitative data and identified the first key steps in qualitative data analysis. In part 2 of this lecture, we will address steps 3 through 5, which will touch upon the process of qualitative data coding and the strategies and cycles of this process. Please proceed to part 2 now.